I want to speak today about two different pastel papers I really love to draw on. My absolute favorite pastel paper is Pastelmat from Clairefontaine. It's a high quality pastel paper, it is velvety and it allows to draw a lot of layers. And the second one is Pastelcard from Sennelier. I have used this paper for many years for commissions, for my own portraits, and I really loved to draw on it. It is a sandy paper, but also amazing. I will compare these two papers here for you. Before we dive in, I would like to invite you to join my free 5 days drawing workshop, Animal Art Week. We will draw a beautiful squirrel, a dog's eye, and you also get a butterfly to draw. You can subscribe in a link below in the description. Here I have prepared two different papers. This is Pastelmat from Clairefontaine and this is Pastelcard from Sennelier. If you take the Pastelcard and run your finger over it, you can feel it is rough, a little bit sandy like sandpaper. And the Pastelmat is much smoother, it is velvety. So let's start with Pastelmat from Clairefontaine. I really love that paper. I use it in most of my animal portraits in pastels and it's amazing. I can highly recommend it. It's a special pastel paper developed for pastel painting. You can buy it in different colors, you can buy it in pads or in single sheets. The weight of the paper is 360 grams per meter. Pastelmat has a very unique velvety drawing surface and all the pastel pigments will stick very well to the paper. It allows drawing lots of layers and using a fixative spray for finishing is not needed. It works really well without it on that paper. I would never recommend using a fixative spray because all the colors will lose their luminosity and they will get much more darker, and all the highlights and details you have drawn will be lost, especially the white fine hairs. So Pastelmat has a smoother surface and is not so rough as Pastelcard, and as mentioned it allows lots of layers. It allows drawing lots of layers. So you can imagine the paper has many small valleys and mountains, and there is space between those valleys and mountains. And with each layer you draw, you will fill pastel pigment into these spaces. So you will fill in pastel pigment. I will show it here to you. I can demonstrate it. So we bring in pastel pigment, push it into the paper, we draw a little bit more and push the pastel pigment into the paper between those little valleys and mountains. Add the next layer and push the pigment into the paper. So you draw lots of layers, and with each layer you are drawing, you fill up these spaces, so the space will get smaller. And you can also draw with lighter colors over dark, and you can add a next color, you can mix them, you can push the pigments into the paper. Pastelmat really allows lots of layers. You can draw with white over the colors, you can add other colors on top, you can mix them. So it's really possible to draw up to 10 to 20 layers or more. The important thing is the blending, that you push the pigments into the paper. So it really works well to mix white with other colors, draw with light over dark and push the pigments into the paper. So sometimes then when all the layers are drawn and the space is filled between the valleys and mountains, then the paper will be saturated. So you can also draw with white over black. So it's important that you blend your layers very well. If you use soft pastels like this Rembrandt black, it can happen that your paper is saturated too early. So when you bring too much pastel pigment to the paper. I demonstrated here to you. There is lots of dust and lots of soft pastel pigment here on the paper. If you don't blend it, you can't draw with white over dark. You can see that here very well. But if you work in layers and blend it really well, so push the pigments into the paper, draw a next layer, push the pigments into the paper, draw a next layer. So you build up your layers, then it works really well. It also is possible with soft pastels, but use less pigment. Then you can draw with white over dark easily. Can you see that here? So if you want to draw with white over the saturated paper, you can only see light gray hairs. It's not possible to get white. It's only possible when you blend your layers very well together. Another positive thing of this paper is that there appears less dust. Only here, when you use soft pastels, there is dust on the paper, but it's really nothing if you compare that paper with sandpaper. Then you have much more dust on your drawing table. What is also good is that the paper also can get wet. So if perhaps sometimes a mishap happens and you have the habit like me to blow away loose pastel dust, so if you have dust on your drawing and you want to blow it away like this one, and you don't want to use a brush, perhaps you will have a water drop on the paper. If that is happening, it's not really a problem because Pastelmat paper can get wet. You can draw also with wet colors, with watercolors or acrylics on this paper. So I will show here to you what happens when I bring in water to the paper. So we bring in water here with a cotton swab. The only thing you can see is that there appears a darker stain, a darker area, but this stain will disappear when the paper is dry again. So nothing is damaged, the drawing surface is not damaged, and you can easily bring in water here. You can draw with watercolors or other wet colors on Pastelmat without having a damaged surface. You can also mix pastel pigments with water or a liquid, so all those things are possible. And you don't have to worry. So I can resume, Pastelmat is a very good high quality pastel paper. It is acid free, it is light fast, and it is aging resistant, and I would highly recommend you to invest in this paper or in a good quality pastel paper. You will get much more successful results and you will be much more satisfied with all your portraits. So let's then speak about Pastelcard. It's a paper I have used over many years and I also love this paper. It also allows lots of layers. I have used it for my animal portraits many times, but the surface is a little bit more rougher. So if you touch the surface, you can feel it's rougher, it's sandy like sandpaper, and you can also see the coating of the surface comes off. So you have dust here on the drawing desk. Yes, so that's a big difference between those two. So Pastelcard also allows lots of layers. So I show it here to you. You have the surface is a little bit more sandy, so you have to apply more color pigment. You can push it into the paper and add color pigment. The negative thing is that there will appear lots of dust, lots of loose pastel pigment, that then you have this dust all around you on your drawing desk. So this paper is a little bit like sandpaper, and then it can perhaps happen that you have pain when you are blending the pigments. Your fingers can hurt, and then I would recommend to use gloves for blending, or a paper tissue or something like this to avoid this pain. Sometimes I hear that it's not possible to draw fine details on Pastelcard, but in my opinion it's possible very, very well, because I have drawn lots of my portraits on this paper with lots of details, so I can show it here to you. If you lose less pressure, you can easily draw fine lines here. Also on Pastelcard, so it's similar to Pastelmat, I think, with drawing details. Of course, the paper can be saturated after a while when you have applied too much pigment or you have drawn lots of layers, and it's also aging resistant, light fast and acid free. It's also a high quality pastel paper, but there are two big disadvantages when I compare these two papers. So when you apply lots of pastel pigment, there appears lots of dust. So you have lots of dust around your drawing, on your drawing desk, and you have to clean that afterwards. So if you don't like the dust, that's really a big disadvantage. But the biggest disadvantage is that the paper must not get wet. So if the paper gets splashed with water drops for any reason, it will be damaged. So you really have to be careful with that. So I will show that to you. I had that sometimes when a mishap happens and I got water drops onto the paper. So I will show it to you what happens if you get water drops onto your drawing surface. So here I apply water with the cotton swab, put a little bit water onto the Pastelcard, then let's wait what happens. So when you then start drawing over the surface again, look, the complete drawing surface is damaged. The coating, this sandy colored coating, is dissolved and the cardboard is revealed. So the paper is damaged and you can't use your drawing anymore. That's really a big disadvantage, and if that happened, your portrait is ruined. Pastelcard must not come into contact with water under any circumstances. Sometimes it can be possible to draw over the wet area when it's completely dry. I have tried this in the past and it has worked, but you have to be very, very careful. You really have to wait until the stain is completely dry, and then you can draw over it again. But it can work, but it must not. So I would not recommend that, and you have to be very, very careful. Finally, I highly recommend you to invest in good quality pastel paper, especially in Pastelmat from Clairefontaine, this one, because you will have much more satisfying results and you will be much happier with your portraits. I wish you lots of fun with drawing. Okay, so I hope this is helpful for you to make the right decision in what pastel paper you will invest. So I most of the times recommend Pastelmat from Clairefontaine because it also can become wet and it's so an amazing paper and it is so easy and fun to draw on it. Okay, so again, I invite you to join Animal Art Week and draw with me and other participants together a sweet squirrel, a beautiful dog eye and a butterfly. You can join in the link below in the description. And then I see you in the next video.